So now I'm going to teach you how to make chocolate ganache. I have the dark chocolate and we need cream. So the cream that we will be using for making the ganache has to be dairy cream because that makes the ganache really rich. And you can use dairy cream with fat percentage anywhere between 25 to 35. Okay, so now this ganache will be specifically used for pastries and desserts, and this ratio of the ganache we will not be using for layered cakes, and for this we are going to use a 1:1 ratio, because same quantity of the chocolate to the same quantity of the cream is what we are going to use. When you're making ganache at home, you can put both the chocolate and the cream together and then microwave in 30-second bursts, and then taking it out of the microwave and then mixing them together until they melt and combine together. Okay, so that is one method. The other method is to heat the cream in the saucepan and have the chocolate finely chopped, and when you start seeing the cream is starting to bubble up on the edges, pour the hot cream into the chocolate. Allow the chocolate to get the heat from the cream, melt, and then keep mixing. That is the second method of doing. Then the other method, the last method that I am going to show to you here, is to double boil both the chocolate and the cream together. Now I am going to continue and do that step, for which I just need to have a stove. You can do it on your gas stove top as well. I just need about an inch height of the water, or even little lesser. You don't want a lot of water here. And then for double boiling method, you need a bowl. You can also use a stainless steel bowl, and then that should fit in the saucepan's outer edge, and you don't want the bottom of the bowl to touch the water. That is also important. Okay, so now we'll just allow the water on the bottom of this saucepan to start boiling, after which we'll reduce the flame to medium, because we don't want the water to keep bubbling up throughout the process. There's chocolate there, and then into this I'm going to add the cream. And once the water starts to boil, the heat from the vapor that's coming up and touching the bottom of this glass bowl is going to melt the chocolate and lighten the cream, and then the both are going to combine with each other, and then we are just going to have ganache made. Okay, I'm just going to mix and then allow it to sit for some time to take down the heat. I'm also going to give time for the water in the saucepan to bubble up and boil. You can see the bottom, the chocolate is beginning to melt. Now you can see the water underneath is bubbling, and now I'll just reduce the flame so it just goes down to medium heat. So what I've used is dark couverture chocolate. I prefer using couverture for desserts and cakes. They are the real chocolate, and the flavor is so much better than the artificial ones, which is the compound. Okay, so now you can see the chocolate is slowly melting and combining with the cream. So you want all the chunks of the chocolate to melt and combine with the cream. Until then, I'm just going to keep mixing. So the percentage of the dark that you will be using can be anywhere between 45 to 55 is my preference. But if you want it like really bittersweet, you can decide to go beyond 55. And if you feel that 45 itself is a little bitter for your preference, then you could mix half of dark chocolate and half of milk chocolate and use that together in the place of chocolate. Okay, so now I have no chunks of chocolate. Okay, so the moment I see it's combined well, I'll just move and take the glass bowl from the saucepan, mix it well. Okay, and then I'm just going to allow it to cool down a little bit. And to have the ganache stored, it's always good to have a cling wrap film touching the surface of the ganache, so you will not have a dry film that's formed on the top layer of the ganache. Okay, so now in this step, I'm not going to cover the top alone. I'm just going to let the cling wrap go in and touch the surface of the ganache. And then this, I'll allow it to set in room temperature for about 4 to 8 hours until we just have to start using it. But these are part of the pre-preparations where you could make the ganache and then leave it in room temperature overnight. But then if you are in a very hot place, then you have to store the ganache in the refrigerator. But when you put that in the refrigerator, it is going to become a little firmer than its normal consistency. In that case, you have to allow the ganache to thaw from the refrigerator, keep it in room temperature. Thawing the ganache, thawing anything from the refrigerator means we should be taking it out of the fridge like 2 hours before we are ready to use. And so we are allowing the ganache or any product for that matter to come down to its own consistency in room temperature, because we need to put the edibles in the refrigerator for overnight storing. So now I'm going to allow this to rest in the room temperature for 4 hours, and then if I have to keep it for long, then it needs to be refrigerated, then thawed down to room temperature for 2 hours before I have to use it in any of the desserts.